I've been a full-time painter for probably about 30 years, supplemented with odd jobs here and there, which is how I hurt my neck. So I was helping a fellow get a load of hay about 15 years ago, and he knocked part of the stack over and one of the bales hit me on top of the head. I started to develop really severe pain in my neck and in my shoulder and in my right arm, and it just kept getting worse and worse. So I got to the point where I couldn't lift my arm to paint. The only way that I could paint would have the painting laying horizontal and at this height. I was actually losing more than 50% of my time because of the pain. By 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'd have to be prone in bed, and then 1 to 2 days a week, I would be in bed. I could not get up to do any kind of work. I had been working with other medical facilities in the area with little or no success, and then I happened to have an art opening, and Leah Chatham saw me in my neck brace that I was wearing, and then she made a call to a doctor up in Butte, and then he hooked me up with Dr. Russo. And then within a very short period of time, like 6 weeks, I was down at Livingston HealthCare and getting my neck fixed. And as you can see, behind me, I'm painting again or looking around the studio. I've been painting now for about 6 months. The hospital is right there. So for any kind of follow-ups and the PT, I mean, it's all right here and this is where I live. I feel like I'm 10 years younger. I might actually live another decade or two.
Back in 2022, I was pregnant, and at 20 weeks, I went in for my anatomy scan, and we found out that my cervix was completely open, and that meant I had been cramping, and obviously that means I'm going into labor, and babies at 20 weeks, really no chance of survival. And so I was sent to Bozeman just to basically just give birth, and my daughter was born, and she lived for 2 hours. And so it was obviously very sad. And then when I got pregnant again with him in 2023, I was terrified of him coming early anyway. And even though 36 weeks is much better than 20 weeks, I was just still scared because technically he was still a preemie. 7 o'clock at night, and we had just finished dinner, and I felt a pop, and then my water broke, and I called my doula and said, this is what's going on. I'm starting to have contractions, and he was actually frank breech, and I was told that when I went into labor to go to the hospital, I told my husband, you should probably call the ER to give him a heads up that we're coming. When I got there, they said I was already 7 centimeters, and maybe 15-20 minutes later, they got me into the OR, and I was 9 centimeters, and everyone was rushing around, and it was really chaotic, and I was very scared. I was really nervous that something was gonna happen to him because he was earlier than I wanted, but everything turned out fine. But basically, from when my water broke to when he was born was 2 hours. Because of his position, and I needed a C-section, if I would have had to go to Bozeman, like drive myself or even be life flighted, I don't know if we would have made it. I don't know if that would have meant if he would have even been alive because of that, or if something would have happened to me. If Livingston HealthCare didn't have what I needed, it would have been possibly another loss, and that would have probably ruined me. So Livingston HealthCare had everything I needed. because it just happened so fast.
I was born and raised in Livingston, and 67 years old, and I work as a land surveyor in town, and been fairly active outside all my life, and started hang gliding, I guess, when I was 19. The day before was a good day. I took off and had a pretty good flight, and so I flew for probably a couple of hours, and then next day there's similar conditions, but the winds were very light. Went up to launch, and the wind completely quit when I started running, and couldn't get airborne and hit the deck. Knee hit the ground and it spun me, and then it spun me into the wire, degloved the back of my calf. Got up, and then I saw my leg, and it was, ooh, this isn't good, and wrapped it up. And I had a friend they took the glider down, and we rode into town to the hospital.
I was on call, and I believe it was a Sunday evening, and the emergency room physician got in touch with me and said that he had a gentleman who had been in a hang gliding accident and had an injury to his leg. So with a little bit more information, I learned that it was a really significant impact to his leg, and he had what we call a degloving injury, which is where the skin had been, and the fat underneath it had been torn off of the muscle.
What are the options with this injury? What do we have to do? And they made a decision, and they went ahead with the plan.
I took him to the operating room, washed the whole area up, and realized that the flap of skin that's about the size of my hand that had been pulled off of the calf, I had to take that entire encasement off so that his muscle could really swell out, so that it didn't cut off blood supply to the rest of his foot and his toes and lose his foot.
Yeah, at Livingston HealthCare, they had everything I needed for my, the trauma that I'd put my body in with that failed launch. And I didn't have to be shipped off to Billings or some other town. They were able to handle everything right here in Livingston at the hospital.
There's a nice collaboration with Billings Clinic, and Dr. Andrew Rice at Billings Clinic is podiatry and wound care by trade. He and I have started collaborating on several patients, and he helped me figure out the appropriate staging for this really complicated wound care that Barney needed, and being able to do it here. While we can't have everything that the bigger hospitals have, we can be really, really good at what we do. And we can push the limits of what we've been doing because technology has gotten better. We're able to do lots of stuff that was, or lots of procedures, new techniques that are much more easily brought in today than they would have been brought in 10 or 15 years ago, when quite honestly, we didn't have the communication that we have now. I can talk to Dr. Rice, who can talk to his colleagues in Arizona, and then we all put our heads together and give, honestly, world-class care at Livingston HealthCare.